Hey there! Before we dive in, could you hit that like button and subscribe? I'm curious, where are you listening from today, and what time is it for you? Let's get into this. The year is 1347. You wake up not to an alarm, but to a dampness that clings to your skin like a second layer. It's not unpleasant, exactly, but profoundly unsettling. The kind of dampness that suggests a hidden spring nearby, and also that you're not entirely sure where you are. You shift slightly, and the ground beneath you is surprisingly soft, a thick layer of decaying leaves and moss. It smells intensely earthy, rich with the scent of mushrooms and something older, deeper, a kind of ancient wood rot that speaks of centuries spent untouched. You're lying on your back, and the ceiling above is a tangle of branches interwoven with vines. It's dark, but not completely so. The filtered light that penetrates the canopy is a muted green and gray, casting long shadows across the space. You try to sit up, but your muscles are stiff and reluctant. It feels like you've been lying here for days, not hours. As you move, a small shower of leaves and twigs rains down on you, landing on your arms and face. You brush them off with a hand that feels strangely numb. Then you see it. Not immediately, but gradually, as your eyes adjust to the gloom. A shape coalesces from the shadows, a tiny figure, no bigger than your hand, woven entirely of moss and leaves. It's vaguely humanoid, with wide-eyed expressions formed by carefully placed bits of dried fern. And it's Asterisk watching you. As you stare, a sound drifts through the grove. Not a voice, but a melody. It's faint at first, like a trickle of water over stones, then grows stronger, becoming a lament. It's the song you realize, when it fully reveals itself, is missing. A single note hangs in the air, a shimmering thread of sound that seems to vibrate through your very bones. The moss spirit tilts its head, a movement so delicate it's almost imperceptible. It raises a hand, a cluster of interwoven twigs and leaves, and points deeper into the grove, towards a stand of ancient oaks. The melody fades again, leaving you with an aching sense that something vital has been lost. You feel a pull, a quiet insistence to follow the spirit, to understand what's happened, and perhaps to help it find its song. Hey there! If you're enjoying this so far, give it a like and subscribe. It really helps keep the channel going. I'm curious, where are you listening from today? And what time is it for you? Let's get back to this. The moss spirit doesn't speak, not in any way you recognize. But as you shift your weight, a subtle rustling answers. The sound of leaves brushing against each other, not in a breeze, but as if someone were deliberately moving them. You stand, and the grove seems to deepen around you. A green embrace that's both comforting and slightly unsettling. You begin to walk, following the spirit's gesture towards the ancient oaks. The ground underfoot is uneven, a tangle of roots and fallen branches that demand your attention. Sunlight filters through the canopy in fractured shafts, illuminating patches of moss and ferns, a miniature world teeming with life. You notice that the air grows noticeably cooler as you move deeper, and a faint scent of pine needles mixes with the earthy aroma. As you approach the oaks, you realize they aren't just trees, they are asterisk old. Their trunks are thick and gnarled, covered in lichen that resembles miniature faces, watchful eyes, and silent mouths. You reach out and touch the bark, feeling its rough texture beneath your fingertips. It's cool to the touch, almost unnaturally so. Then you hear it again. A whisper, this time clearer, carried on the air like a secret. It's not a voice, but a resonance, a vibration that seems to emanate from the trees themselves. You close your eyes and listen intently, trying to discern its meaning. It's a slow, deliberate sound, like the creaking of an ancient door, and as you focus on it, you begin to understand. The trees aren't simply standing here, they are remembering. Each ring in their trunks holds a story. Storms weathered, seasons endured, lives lived and lost. The whisper isn't a message. It's an invitation to feel their history, to connect with the deep, patient wisdom of the forest. You reach out and place your hand on the trunk of one of the largest oaks, feeling its immense solidity beneath your palm. The whisper intensifies and a strange warmth spreads through your hand. Not heat, but something akin to remembering. You see flashes of images in your mind. A deer leaping through the undergrowth, a hawk circling overhead, rain falling on leaves. It's fleeting and indistinct, but profoundly moving. Suddenly you notice something else, a small indentation in the moss at the base of the oak. It's perfectly circular, about the size of your hand. As you kneel to examine it closer, you realize that this isn't just moss. It's a carving, a symbol etched into the earth. It resembles a spiral, and as you trace its outline with your fingers, another wave of images floods your mind. A ritual performed under the light of a full moon, a connection to something ancient and powerful. You feel a pull, a sense that this symbol is key to unlocking the spirit's lost song. If you're watching this right now, maybe it's a chilly evening in December. The light outside is gray and weak, and you're wrapped in a thick woolen blanket, probably trying to ignore the dampness seeping through the floorboards. The year is 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter, and it hits you immediately. Not just the cold, though that's certainly present, but a pressure, a weight of green. You open your eyes slowly, and it's not the sky you see, but a wall, a solid, impenetrable wall of leaves and branches, thick vines twisting upwards like grasping fingers. It's not a forest in the conventional sense. It's more like being swallowed whole by vegetation. The air is heavy, saturated with the scent of decaying wood and rich earth, a smell so potent it almost tastes metallic on your tongue. You try to move, but the leaves brush against you with surprising force, 1,000 tiny hands pushing back. It's not aggressive, exactly. It's just insistent. You reach out a hand and feel the texture, not smooth bark, but rough, yielding moss clinging to ancient wood. The branches above are laden with ferns, their fronds unfurling like silent explosions of green. Sunlight struggles to penetrate, casting the grove in a perpetual twilight. You can hear it too, not birdsong, but a low thrumming, a vibration that seems to emanate from the earth itself. It's subtle at first, then grows steadily louder, resonating in your chest and making your teeth ache. You stumble forward, pushing through the dense undergrowth, and realize it's not a random collection of trees. These are ancient things, colossal oaks with roots that snake across the ground, their trunks wider than a man could embrace. The moss is everywhere, draping over branches, carpeting the ground, clinging to rocks like a velvet cloak. You notice that some of the moss is luminous, faintly glowing in shades of jade and emerald. As you move deeper into the grove, the thrumming intensifies, and a strange sense of disorientation begins to creep in. It's not frightening, but profoundly unsettling, like being adrift in a sea of green, with no point of reference and no sense of where you're going. You reach out again, this time to steady yourself against a particularly large oak. The bark is cool and damp beneath your palm, covered in intricate patterns of lichen, miniature landscapes sculpted by time and weather. You feel a faint tremor beneath your fingertips, as if the tree itself is breathing. And then you notice it, a single drop of moisture falling from a leaf above, landing on your cheek. It's not rain, it's something thicker, warmer, almost viscous. You wipe it away and taste it. Earthy, with a hint of something sweet and unfamiliar. It's as if the forest itself is offering you a gift, a silent invitation to become part of its overwhelming green. The air thickens, not with humidity, but with a profound stillness. You shift, and the ground beneath you feels impossibly soft, like sinking into a bed of velvet moss. It's not comfortable, exactly. It's more like being swallowed whole by something yielding and ancient. You're acutely aware of your size, a single speck against the colossal trunks surrounding you. The trees aren't just tall. They are immense, their bark furrowed with the weight of centuries. Sunlight filters down in fractured beams, illuminating swirling dust motes that dance like tiny spirits. You try to stand, but your limbs feel sluggish, weighted down by the earth itself. It's a strange sensation, not weakness, but an almost deliberate slowing of your movements, as if the forest is asking you to become part of its rhythm. A twig snaps nearby, and a wave of cold washes over you, not from the air, but from the ground rising sharply beneath your feet. You stumble downwards, landing on a patch of slick, cool stone, the edge of a hidden spring. The water is shockingly clear, reflecting the dappled light above like a shattered mirror. As you reach out to touch it, something brushes against your hand. A feather, impossibly fine and iridescent. It floats upwards, disappearing into the gloom. Then you see it, a movement amongst the roots of an ancient oak. A shape, small and shifting, woven from leaves and moss, coalescing into a form that resembles a tiny person. It's not humanoid, its limbs are too delicate, its head too small, and its eyes, if you can call them that, glow with a faint internal light. It doesn't speak, but you sense an invitation, a silent plea for help. A tremor runs through the ground again, this time accompanied by a low hum that vibrates in your chest. You realize with sudden clarity, you are utterly, completely vulnerable here. Not just physically, but in a way that strips away your usual defenses, leaving you exposed to the forest's ancient power. And yet, there's also a profound sense of peace, a feeling that you've stumbled into a place where time itself flows differently. You are not meant to understand. You are simply meant to *be within this space, a fleeting moment in the forest's long and silent history. The air hangs thick and still, a damp wool blanket smothering your senses. It's not the scent of earth and pine you expected. Not really. Instead, there's a cloying sweetness overlaid with something metallic, like old blood and rusted iron. You shift, trying to sit up, but your limbs feel leaden, coated in a layer of cold. The ground beneath you isn't soft moss, but packed earth and something harder, a scattering of smooth, gray stones. You notice a small, intricately carved bone lying beside your hand. It's not animal. The angles are too precise, the curves too deliberate. The surface is polished to a dull sheen, and you can feel a faint vibration humming beneath your fingertips. As you lift it, the silence presses in on you with an almost physical weight. It's not a natural silence. It's asterisk wrong. The trees themselves seem to hold their breath, their branches rigid and unyielding. Then you see it, a flicker of movement deeper within the grove, a brief shimmer like heat haze. It's not an animal you recognize. This is something constructed. You reach out, your hand instinctively grasping at a nearby branch, a thick, gnarled limb that resists your touch with surprising strength. The bone slips from your grasp and rolls further into the shadows, disappearing amongst the roots of an ancient oak. A single drop of rain lands on your cheek, cold and heavy. You feel a prickling sensation at the back of your neck, a sense that you're being watched. Not in a threatening way. Not exactly. More like an intense curiosity, a feeling that you've stumbled upon a secret too old to be forgotten. A place where the forest itself is guarding something precious and profoundly unsettling. The moss being, it felt less like a creature and more like a collection of carefully arranged sighs, shifted, its leafy limbs rearranging themselves with a disconcerting fluidity. It held out a hand, not a hand really, but a tightly woven bundle of twigs and fallen petals. Inside, nestled amongst the decaying foliage, was a single, smooth stone, gray like river rock, cool to the touch. As you reached for it, a sudden gust of wind ripped through the grove, scattering leaves and carrying with it a scent, not unpleasant, but profoundly ancient. It smelled of rain on granite, of roots digging deep into the earth, and something else, something akin to regret. You hesitated, your fingers hovering just above the stone. It wasn't an invitation. It was a plea. You noticed then that the moss being seemed to be subtly angling its form, directing your gaze towards a section of the trunk of an enormous beech tree. The bark was covered in intricate carvings, not deliberate, not like a craftsman's work, but rather as if the tree itself had slowly, over centuries, imprinted its memories onto the wood. Running your hand across the surface, you felt a faint vibration, a pulse beneath the rough texture. It was as if the tree were trying to communicate, not with words, but with a deep, resonant feeling. You pressed your palm against the bark and felt a sharp, unexpected coldness spread through your arm. The stone in the moss being's hand dimmed, its gray surface becoming almost translucent. It felt like a sacrifice, a piece of the tree's memory offered to you. A key, perhaps, but one that felt profoundly heavy and burdened with sorrow. You understood then. This wasn't a gift. It was a fragment of the forest's grief, a reminder that even in this hidden sanctuary, something precious had been lost. The moss being, it was difficult to call it a asterisk thing, really, shifted slightly, and you felt it first as a prickling on your skin, not a rash, not exactly, more like 1,000 tiny needles, each one impossibly light, pressing against your flesh. It started at your shoulder and spread slowly down your arm, a creeping warmth battling with the insistent cold of the grove. You instinctively pulled your hand back, but it was too late. The sensation intensified, now reaching your wrist and fingers. It wasn't painful, not precisely, but profoundly unsettling, like being brushed by 1,000 silent wings. You glanced around, searching for the source, but the grove remained stubbornly still, a tangle of ancient roots and dripping branches under a sky choked with gray. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something faintly metallic, like old blood. You tried to move, to stand, but your limbs felt leaden, unresponsive. It was as if the forest itself was holding you in place, a deliberate and unsettling stillness. The prickling intensified again, now reaching your face. A subtle pressure on your forehead and the nape of your neck. You could feel it behind your eyes. A strange awareness that you weren't alone, not in the way one usually feels alone. It wasn't a presence you could see or hear, but an impression, the feeling of being observed by something ancient and deeply rooted. You shifted your weight, a small movement that seemed to amplify the sensation, and a single drop of dew fell from a nearby leaf, landing on your hand. It was icy cold, and as you brought it to your lips, the prickling receded slightly, replaced by a lingering sense of unease. The moss being remained motionless, its gray surface reflecting the gloom, and you realized with a sudden certainty that it wasn't watching you in any conventional sense. It was something deeper, a resonance, a connection that bypassed sight and went straight to the core of your being. You were not an intruder here, not a threat. But you were something, a ripple in the stillness, a brief flicker of awareness within an age-old landscape. The moss being shifted slightly, and a cool dampness spread across your palm. It wasn't unpleasant, more like the sudden, unexpected chill of a winter stream on your skin. You looked down and saw that it wasn't simply resting on your hand, but growing there. Tiny tendrils of moss, a shade of gray that seemed to absorb the light around it, were weaving themselves into your skin. It felt strangely insistent, a gentle pressure that urged you to turn your hand over and over, examining the intricate patterns forming beneath your fingertips. The scent intensified, not just of damp earth and decaying leaves, but something deeper, older, the smell of rain on stone after centuries. You tried to pull your hand away, a reflexive movement born from instinct, but it wouldn't budge. The moss continued to spread, a silent, deliberate colonization of your flesh. It wasn't aggressive, it was patient. Like a lichen slowly claiming a crumbling wall or the persistent creep of ivy across an ancient stone. You noticed then that it wasn't just covering your skin, but also drawing warmth from you. Your hand felt colder than it should have, yet, simultaneously, a subtle current of energy flowed into the moss, feeding its growth. It was as if it were drinking your life force, not to destroy it, but to sustain itself. You shifted your weight, bringing the rest of your arm into contact with the moss. It responded immediately, a network of cool, damp tendrils wrapping around your wrist and extending up your forearm. The sensation wasn't painful. It was a profound, unsettling stillness. You felt your breath catch in your throat, not from fear, but from a strange sense of recognition. It was as if you were remembering something, a forgotten connection to the earth, a primal understanding of growth and decay. The moss continued its silent work, and you realized with a sudden clarity that it wasn't seeking to dominate you. It was simply completing something. Like a missing piece of a landscape, a forgotten echo in the heart of the forest. You closed your eyes and let your hand remain immersed, feeling the cool dampness spread further up your arm. The forest held its breath, and for a moment, you understood that this wasn't an invasion. It was a homecoming. You shift again, a prickle of cold against your cheek. The air smells sharply of pine and something else, something metallic, faintly coppery. You reach out, fingers brushing against a patch of moss, clinging to a fallen log. It's surprisingly warm beneath your touch, almost pulsing with a slow rhythm. Then you see it, nestled amongst the moss, a single berry. It's an impossible shade of red, a deep, bruised crimson that seems to absorb the light around it. You hesitate, a strange pull urging you forward. It's small, no bigger than your thumb, and its skin is slick with a viscous fluid. You pick it up, the weight surprising you. It feels heavier than it should. The scent intensifies, a blend of sweetness and iron. You bring it to your lips, and the taste is unlike anything you've ever experienced. It's not just sweet, it's layered, a complex cascade of flavors. Wild honey, dark earth, and a lingering bitterness that coats your tongue. As you swallow, a warmth spreads through your chest, not unpleasant, but profoundly unsettling. You feel a sudden awareness, a connection to the forest deepening, sharpening. The trees seem to lean closer, their branches intertwining like grasping fingers. You notice a subtle shift in the light, a deepening of shadows beneath their boughs. It's not just your senses that have heightened. It's as if a part of you has become attuned to the forest's heartbeat. You glance down at your hand, and a single drop of crimson fluid has stained your palm. It's not blood, it's something else. Something ancient and potent. The forest holds its breath again, a silent invitation, or perhaps a warning, hanging in the air. You feel an instinctive urge to understand what this gift represents, to decipher its meaning within the heart of this hidden place. The moss being, you started to think of it as Pip, gestures with a twig, impossibly long and thin, towards a tangle of roots thicker than your arm. It's not an invitation exactly, but more like a suggestion, a way to asterisk feel the path. You reach out and press your palm against the cool, damp wood. Immediately, a shiver runs through you, not unpleasant, but deep, like remembering something you never knew. The forest floor seems to shift beneath your feet, not physically, but in the way your senses perceive it. You notice a subtle gradient of scent. Pine and damp earth, yes, but layered with something sharper. Wild berries fermenting under the soil, a hint of rain on granite. Pip continues to point with its twig, and you realize it's not showing you a asterisk root dart but a sequence. You mimic its movements, pressing your hand against different roots, and with each touch the forest whispers, not in words, but in a pressure against your skin, a coolness that blooms into warmth, a sudden awareness of the angle of a root to the sun. It's like learning a language without ever hearing it spoken. You begin to understand that the forest isn't just Hayanak, it's actively communicating, not through sound, but through the way it interacts with your body. The roots aren't just holding the ground, they're drawing energy, sharing it with each other in a silent network. You shift your weight, letting your hand rest on a particularly ancient root. It feels like touching the skin of a giant. And then you understand. This isn't about finding a path, it's about becoming one with the forest's flow. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel utterly still, not just in your body, but as if your awareness is merged with the slow pulse of the earth. The scent intensifies. Now you recognize it as decaying leaves and rich soil, a promise of renewal. It's a feeling more than a smell, a deep sense of belonging, not to this grove specifically, but to something far larger and older. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, and if you're listening during the day, perhaps with the rain tapping on your window, that's a good time for this. It's 1347, and you wake up coated in a damp chill, the air thick with the scent of pine needles and wet earth. It's not a sharp smell, but one that settles deep in your lungs, coating everything with a layer of ancient wood and decay. You shift, and the ground beneath you is surprisingly soft. Not mud exactly, but a deep layer of fallen leaves and moss. You feel the cold seep through your clothes, a persistent dampness that clings to your skin. Looking around, you see towering pines stretching upwards, their branches interwoven like the fingers of giants. Rain continues to fall, a steady drumming on the canopy above, and you notice it's not just rain. There's a low hum vibrating through the trees, a resonance that seems to emanate from deep within their wood. It's subtle at first, almost like a distant choir, but as you become aware of it, the hum grows stronger, intertwining with the rhythm of the rain. You reach out and touch a pine trunk. It's rough, cool to the touch, and as your fingers trace its bark, you feel a faint vibration beneath your fingertips. It's not an electrical current, but something else, something akin to a heartbeat. You stand and take in the grove again. Ferns unfurl like emerald scrolls along the edges of a small stream. The water flows silently, reflecting the gray sky above. You notice a single perfect mushroom, scarlet with white spots, growing at the base of one of the larger pines. You kneel, and as you reach for it, a flash of movement catches your eye. A tiny figure, no bigger than your hand, emerges from behind a thick root. It's made entirely of moss and leaves, shaped roughly like a child, with wide, luminous eyes. It doesn't speak, but you sense an intense sadness radiating from it, a deep longing for something lost. The rain intensifies, and as the droplets beat against your face, you realize that this isn't just rain. It's a cascade of notes, each drop echoing with a different pitch. You instinctively reach out and cup your hands, letting the water flow over them, feeling its coolness wash away some of the chill. The little spirit seems to react, tilting its head slightly, as if acknowledging your gesture. It's a silent exchange, a beginning, and you know with sudden certainty that your task isn't to asterisk find a song, but to help it be remembered. The air hangs thick and heavy, not with moisture this time, but with something else, a scent like wet stone and decaying leaves, overlaid with a sharp metallic tang. It's not unpleasant, exactly, just profoundly old. You shift, and a cold seeped through your cloak, not from the winter air. It's deeper than that. Then you hear it, a single, insistent caw, echoing from the shadowed heart of the grove. It's not just a sound. It feels like a vibration against your skin, a memory trying to surface. As you stand, a movement catches your eye, a flicker of green amongst the moss and roots. It coalesces into a form, impossibly small, a spirit woven from leaves and twigs, its eyes like polished amber. It doesn't speak, but a current runs through you, a feeling of profound sadness. You reach out slowly, offering your hand, a gesture born not of intention, but of a desperate need to connect. The spirit tilts its head, and then a sound, not from it, but through it, a fragmented melody, thin and reedy, like a forgotten flute. It's layered with static, almost lost entirely, but you recognize it, a single line from a song your grandmother used to sing. You remember the tune, a lullaby about the turning of seasons and the patience of the earth. As you hum along, tentatively at first, the spirit's form seems to brighten, a single leaf unfurling. Then another caw, this one closer, and this time a response, a brief cascade of notes mirroring your humming. It's not the whole song, but it's a piece of it, a shard returned. You realize then that the spirit isn't seeking to recover its song, but to remember it. It's a process of resonance, a slow unfolding through the echoes of your own past. If you're watching this late at night, wrapped in a blanket, feeling the chills seep through the fabric, that's good. It means you're still here, still listening. You've been in this grove for what feels like days, though time has become a slippery thing. The air smells sharply of pine and wet earth, overlaid with something older. The scent of decaying leaves that has settled into the very wood itself. You're sitting on a bed of moss, surprisingly warm against your skin, and in front of you rests a small block of oak. It's rough, cool to the touch, and riddled with tiny knots that feel like miniature hills. Beside it lies a whittling knife, its handle worn smooth by countless hands, and the blade surprisingly sharp. You don't remember picking it up. It just appeared. You begin to carve, slowly at first, then with a growing sense of purpose. The wood yields reluctantly, resisting your efforts with a quiet insistence. Splinters fly, and the scent of fresh-cut wood sharpens in the air. You're not trying to create anything beautiful, not aiming for a particular shape. Just pushing the knife, feeling the resistance, and letting the wood speak through your movements. The rhythm becomes hypnotic, a slow push, a pull, a scrape. Your hands grow numb, then warm again with the effort. You notice that as you carve, a faint humming begins to vibrate through your fingertips and up your arms. It's not loud, but it's persistent, a subtle thrumming that seems to originate from the wood itself. As you carve deeper, a pattern emerges, not one you consciously designed, but a spiraling design that seems to grow organically from the grain. It's as if you're not shaping the wood, but rather coaxing it into revealing its hidden form. With each pass of the knife, you feel a strange connection to this place, to the ancient trees that tower above, their branches interwoven like grasping fingers. The humming intensifies, and a single leaf, a perfect crimson maple, falls from one of the branches above, landing silently on your lap. You look up, but the trees remain still and silent. The wood beneath your hands feels strangely alive, pulsing with a slow, internal rhythm that mirrors the beat of your own heart. It's not just wood anymore. It feels like a memory, a fragment of something lost and waiting to be unearthed. The air hangs thick and cold, a damp wool blanket pressed against your skin. It smells of wet earth and something else, something ancient, like turned soil after centuries. You shift, and a trickle of icy water runs down your arm, staining the rough linen shirt against your chest. It's a brutal kind of cold, not the sharp bite of snow, but a deep, penetrating chill that seems to seep into your bones. You're lying on a bed of moss, surprisingly soft beneath you, and the ground slopes gently downwards towards a massive oak. Its roots, thick as a man's torso, snake across the clearing, disappearing into the darkness. As you sit up, a movement catches your eye. A tiny figure, no bigger than your hand, coalesces from the shadows beneath one of the roots. It's made entirely of moss and leaves, a miniature whirlwind of green and brown with eyes like polished amber. It doesn't speak, but a feeling, a gentle sadness, washes over you. You reach out a hand cautiously, and the little spirit dips its head, accepting a single leaf from your palm. It turns it over in its tiny hands, examining it with an almost reverent curiosity. You notice then that the moss is not just green. There are flecks of gold and silver woven into its texture, like captured sunlight. As you watch, a single drop of sap oozes from the root beside it, landing on your fingers. It's warm and sweet, a startling contrast to the pervasive cold. You instinctively pull your hand back, but the spirit, now slightly bolder, reaches out and gently touches your skin with a single, velvety leaf. It's not demanding, it's simply offering. You realize then that you need to give something back, a piece of yourself to help it find its song. You close your eyes and focus on a memory, a feeling of warmth, of laughter shared with someone long gone. You press your hand against the base of the oak, offering a silent gift, a fragment of your own warmth. The moss spirit seems to absorb it, its form shimmering for a moment before settling into a deeper shade of green. It turns and disappears back into the shadows, leaving behind only the scent of damp earth and a lingering sense of quiet gratitude. The cold remains, but it feels less oppressive now, as if a small piece of your own warmth has been anchored to the heartwood of the ancient tree. You wake to the smell first. Not unpleasant exactly, but thick and insistent, like a damp linen closet filled with herbs and something else, something almost medicinal. It clings to your skin, a cool weight against the chill of the air. You shift, and the scent intensifies, revealing layers, crushed rosemary, a sharp tang of wild mint, and beneath it all, the earthy depth of decaying leaves. You realize you're lying on a bed of moss, surprisingly soft and yielding beneath your worn tunic. The grove is quieter now, the wind having died down completely. Sunlight filters weakly through a canopy of ancient oaks and beeches, painting the moss floor in shifting patterns of jade and shadow. You reach out a hand and touch something cool and smooth, a small wooden bowl filled with a viscous paste. It's the color of jade and smells powerfully of those same herbs, but with a resinous undertone. A single gnarled hand, impossibly small and covered in lichen, reaches out from behind a fallen log. It offers you the bowl, its fingers surprisingly strong and deft. As you lift it, a faint tremor runs through the wood, and you feel a prickling sensation on your skin. The grove seems to hold its breath. You turn, and there it is, a creature woven from leaves and moss, no bigger than your hand. It's not beautiful in the conventional sense. Its form is rough, almost haphazardly assembled, but it radiates an ancient stillness. Tiny droplets of the green paste cling to its leafy limbs, and as you examine it more closely, you notice that a single leaf, a vibrant crimson maple, is pressed against its forehead. It doesn't speak, but you sense an invitation, a quiet plea for something, for a memory perhaps. You instinctively understand that this paste isn't just an ointment, it's a fragment of the forest itself, offered to you. You smear a little on your aching shoulder, the one that's been throbbing since you woke up, and a wave of coolness spreads through your muscles, easing the stiffness. The scent grows stronger, and for a fleeting moment, you see a flash, not a picture, but a feeling, of sunlight dappling through leaves, the sound of a distant stream. It's gone as quickly as it came, leaving you with a profound sense of connection to this place, and a growing certainty that your task isn't about finding a lost song, but about remembering something you've forgotten. The moss clinging to your skin feels cool and slick, a damp weight against your limbs. It's not unpleasant, just persistent. You shift, and a shower of tiny leaves drifts down, landing on your face and clothes. A miniature blizzard in this hidden space. The air hangs thick with the scent of wet earth and something else, deeper, a resinous bitterness that catches in your throat. It's the smell of old wounds, you realize, a scent that clings to the very stones beneath your hands as you push yourself upright. You're lying on a bed of decaying ferns, the ground yielding slightly under your weight. A low hum vibrates through the earth, a resonance that seems to settle deep within your bones. As you stand, a single drop of rainwater slides down your cheek and splashes onto the mossy floor. It's then you see it, a flicker of movement, a shape coalescing from the shadows. It's small, no bigger than your hand, and entirely made of interwoven mosses and fallen leaves. Its eyes are two polished pieces of amber, reflecting the dim light with an unsettling intensity. It doesn't speak, but a current of sadness flows from it, a palpable weight that settles on your chest. You instinctively reach out a hand, and as your fingers brush against the cool, yielding surface of its form, you feel a sharp, stinging pain. Not physical, but something deeper. It's like a memory being forcibly extracted, a fragment of grief so potent it steals your breath. You stumble back, clutching at your chest, and the spirit, if that's what it is, tilts its head, a single leaf trembling on its shoulder. The scent of the forest intensifies, and you notice that the ferns around you are beginning to bloom with an unnatural speed, their fronds unfurling in a frantic dance. It's as if the grove itself is reacting to this exchange, offering something in return for what you've unwittingly given. You realize with a sudden clarity that this isn't about finding your way home, not entirely. It's about repaying a debt you didn't even know existed, one woven into the very fabric of this place. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, and if you're feeling the chill in your bones as you read this, then settle in. Because right now, it's 1347. You wake up plastered to the damp earth, a thick layer of moss clinging to your tunic. The air is heavy, saturated with the scent of wet soil and something else, something metallic and sharp, like rain on old iron. It's not a pleasant smell, not really, but it's undeniably present. You try to shift, to sit up, and a groan escapes your lips. Your muscles ache with a deep, insistent fatigue, the kind that settles into you like a lead weight. Above you, the canopy is choked with ancient pines, their branches interwoven so tightly that only slivers of bruised twilight manage to pierce through. Rain continues to fall, not in a gentle shower, but in sheets, driven by a wind that whips through the trees with a furious energy. You notice you're not alone. A shape, small and shifting, coalesces from the shadows near your feet. It's made entirely of moss and fallen leaves, intricately woven together with what looks like spider silk. It's roughly the size of your hand, and as you watch, a single iridescent leaf unfurls from its core, then another and another, until it's a miniature whirlwind of green and brown. You instinctively reach out a hand, not expecting anything to happen, but feeling an odd pull, a resonance. The leaf spirit, you decide that's what it is, tilts its head, a movement so subtle you almost miss it. The rain intensifies, and suddenly the forest explodes with sound. It's not just the rain anymore. It's a low, guttural rumble that grows steadily louder. You look up to see the sky darkening with impossible speed, bruised purple and angry gray swirling together. The wind howls, tearing at your clothes, and the trees begin to thrash wildly, their branches scraping against each other in a cacophony of splintering wood and rustling leaves. Then, the thunder breaks, not with a single clap, but a continuous barrage of sound, vibrating through your chest and rattling your teeth. It's a deafening roar, an elemental force that seems to be trying to tear the forest apart. You feel a strange pressure in your ears, a sense of being overwhelmed by something ancient and powerful. The leaf spirit remains still, seemingly unaffected by the storm's fury. It raises a tiny hand, a cluster of interwoven twigs and moss, and points deeper into the woods, towards a section of the forest you hadn't noticed before. A narrow ravine choked with ferns and slick with mud. You feel an undeniable urge to follow it, a feeling that this isn't just about finding your way out. It's about answering something or someone. You're shivering violently now, not just from the cold. Though that's certainly a factor, it's more like a deep internal tremor radiating from your bones. The rain hasn't stopped. It's a relentless drumming on the thick canopy above, and each drop feels like a tiny ice needle against your skin. You're huddled with the leaf spirit, surprisingly, and a tangle of gnarled roots that have become a makeshift shield. The roots are slick with mud and cold, but they offer a small measure of protection from the wind that's now howling through the ravine. You notice, with a jolt, that you're not alone. Scattered amongst the roots are other figures, or at least things resembling them. They're draped in moss and woven vines, their faces obscured by leafy hoods. They don't move, they don't speak, but you sense a profound stillness emanating from them. It's not hostility, it's something older, something that has simply been for a very long time. You try to shift, to pull away, but your limbs feel leaden, unresponsive. The rain intensifies, blurring the edges of everything, until it's just a gray wash of water and wood. You reach out, instinctively, and your hand brushes against something soft, a patch of velvety moss clinging to the root. As you touch it, a faint melody drifts into your awareness, not heard exactly, but felt. It's fragile, like a spider web stretched across your mind. You realize it's the same melody you heard when the leaf spirit pointed deeper into the woods. It's a lament, a sorrowful tune that seems to vibrate with the very earth beneath you. You feel a pull, an insistent urging to follow it, but also a deep-seated fear, a primal instinct screaming at you to stay put, to remain hidden. The roots around you seem to pulse with a slow, rhythmic beat, mirroring the tempo of the melody. You notice that each root is covered in tiny, luminous fungi, pale green and blue, that glow faintly in the gloom. As you watch them, a single drop of rain lands on your cheek and tastes strangely metallic like old blood. You instinctively pull back, a wave of nausea washing over you. The leaf spirit remains motionless, its twig hands still pointing towards the deeper shadows of the ravine. It's as if it's waiting, not for you to move, but for something to move. You shift again, a sharp, insistent throb blooming in your left calf. It's not a bruise, not yet anyway, more like a cold, deep ache that pulses with your heartbeat. You pull back the damp moss clinging to your trousers and see it, a dark, slick stain spreading across your skin. It smells faintly of iron and something else, resinous, like a freshly felled tree. You instinctively reach down to touch it, and the pain flares again, this time accompanied by a prickling heat. It feels ancient. As you examine it closer, you notice the skin around the stain is subtly textured, not smooth like your own flesh, but covered in a network of tiny, raised ridges. It's as if the wood itself is trying to push through your skin. You try to pull it away, but it resists with a strange, unyielding strength. The ache intensifies, and you realize, with a sickening lurch, that it's not just an injury, it's a memory, imprinted on your body. A fragment of something that happened long ago, before you were even aware of yourself. The forest seems to hold its breath, the air thickening with a weight you can almost taste, a metallic tang mixed with the scent of decaying leaves. You feel an overwhelming urge to understand, not just the pain, but why it's here. And as you stare at your calf, a single drop of rain lands on the stain, and it momentarily darkens, resembling a miniature pool reflecting a shadowed sky. The moss clinging to your calf isn't just damp. It feels ancient, like a layer of time itself has settled on your skin. You shift, and the forest floor sighs beneath you. Not with a sound, exactly, but with a subtle compression of air, as if the earth is remembering your movement. You reach out and touch one of the surrounding trees. A colossal oak, its bark thick with lichen and carved by centuries of wind and rain. And then it happens. You don't just see the bark, you feel it. Not in a tactile way, but as if your mind is suddenly flooded with 1,000 perspectives. You see the slow crawl of moss across its surface, the frantic dance of insects beneath it, the deep, silent hunger of a root burrowing into its heartwood. Each ridge and furrow becomes a memory, a raindrop landing, a bird's nest built, the weight of snow settling. It's overwhelming, a cascade of sensations that threatens to drown you. You pull your hand back as if burned, and the torrent recedes, leaving a lingering echo of countless lives lived within that single tree. You notice your breath coming in ragged gasps, and a strange pressure builds behind your eyes. The forest isn't just around you, it's asterisk through you, a constant influx of awareness that feels both terrifying and profoundly beautiful. You stumble forward, instinctively seeking something solid to anchor yourself to. A stone, a fallen branch, anything to remind you that you are still here. But even the stone feels layered, covered in a faint shimmer of past encounters. A ghost memory of rain and wind. The air grows colder, not with the bite of winter, but with a sense of profound isolation. You realize you're utterly alone, not in the absence of other people, but in a deeper sense, cut off from any recognizable timeline, any familiar reference point. The forest is an unbroken loop of existence, and you're caught within it, a single fleeting ripple in the vast, silent current. If you're watching this for the first time, give the channel a like and subscribe. It helps us keep making stories like this. Right now, you're shivering, not just from the cold, though that's certainly a factor. It's a deeper chill, a vibration in your bones. You open your eyes slowly, and the first thing you register isn't light, but a smell. It's metallic, sharp and insistent, like old blood mixed with iron filings. It clings to the air, thick and heavy, and it's not a pleasant scent at all. You try to shift, but your limbs feel leaden, unresponsive. The ground beneath you is damp and spongy, covered in a layer of decaying leaves that resist your movement. You're lying on your back, and as you force yourself to look around, you notice the trees. They're ancient, impossibly tall, their trunks swollen with age and covered in a thick tapestry of moss. But it's not the trees themselves that are unsettling. It's what clings to them, long, sinuous vines, pulsing with a faint internal light. The metallic smell intensifies as you sit up, and that's when what appears, not suddenly, more like a ripple in the air, a darkening of the shadows, until a form coalesces. It's small, no bigger than your hand, and entirely made of moss and leaves, woven together with what looks like spider silk. It has no face, just a swirling pattern of green and brown where eyes should be, and a delicate crown of thorns woven into its mossy hair. As it moves, the vines on the tree seem to react, twisting and reaching towards it with a disturbing eagerness. The air grows colder still, and you realize this isn't just a creature. It's something predatory, not in the obvious sense. It doesn't stalk or threaten, but there's a feeling, a weight in the space around it, that suggests something is hunting toward it. You instinctively try to pull back, to roll over and hide, but your body won't obey. You feel a strange pull, a subtle insistence to remain still, to observe. The metallic scent is strongest now, and you notice something else. Tiny droplets of moisture on the leaves surrounding it. Not rain. This is too viscous, too heavy with minerals. It's like sap, but tainted, corrupted by something dark and ancient. You reach out a hand hesitantly towards the creature. As your fingers brush against its mossy surface, you feel a jolt, not painful, but profoundly unsettling. It's as if a memory is being forced into your mind, a fleeting glimpse of a forest consumed by shadow, a single, crimson flower blooming amidst the devastation. Then it's gone, leaving you with an overwhelming sense of loss and a chilling certainty. This creature isn't lost, it's waiting. The scent hits you first. Not unpleasant exactly, but profoundly ancient and thick with decay. It's the smell of wet earth and something else, resin perhaps, mingled with a faint bitterness you can't quite place. Then the wind arrives. It doesn't build gradually, it explodes, a sudden violent shove that rips through the grove. You stumble backwards, instinctively shielding your face with one arm. The leaves around you are torn loose and flung upwards in a chaotic dance, momentarily blinding you with their green and brown fury. You feel the cold bite of rain immediately after, icy needles against your skin, soaking through your worn tunic. The creature beside you doesn't move, remaining remarkably still despite the onslaught. It's a strange stillness, like a stone nestled amongst rushing water. As quickly as it began, the wind subsides, leaving behind an eerie quiet and a landscape rearranged. Branches snap with a final, mournful crack. You notice now that the grove isn't entirely open. It's bordered by a wall of impossibly tall trees, their trunks thicker than any you've ever seen. They lean inwards, almost touching, creating a tunnel of shadow and dampness. You reach out to steady yourself against one. Its bark is rough and cool beneath your palm, covered in a velvety moss that seems to pulse faintly. Looking down, you see the rain has collected in shallow depressions on the ground, reflecting the gray light filtering through the canopy. The water is surprisingly clear, and as you lean closer to examine it, you catch a glimpse of something beneath the surface, a flash of iridescent color, too fleeting to identify. You shift your weight, and a root, thick as your arm, rises from the earth with surprising speed. It doesn't strike you, it simply moves. You realize with a prickle of unease that the forest itself is watching you. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm beside you, it's 1347. You wake up coated in a damp chill, the air thick with the scent of pine and something else, something metallic. It's not unpleasant exactly, but insistent. The smell of blood and iron. You push yourself up, your muscles protesting with a dull ache, and that's when you hear it. A relentless thud, thud. It's coming from deeper in the grove. A steady rhythm that vibrates through the earth beneath you. You stumble to your feet and follow the sound, pushing aside ferns as thick as a man's arm. The light is dim, filtered through the dense canopy above, and you can see only a few feet ahead. The thud grows louder with each step, accompanied by the rasp of wood against metal. You round a bend in the path and stop dead. Before you is a clearing dominated by an ancient oak, its trunk wider than any you've ever seen. And at its base, a man, or what looks like one, is working with a heavy hammer. He's not dressed in armor, but his hands are calloused and stained with sap and something darker. He's shaping a piece of wood, slowly, deliberately, creating what appears to be a small wooden flute. The thud is the sound of his hammer striking against a block of wood, preparing it for the next piece. As you watch, he doesn't seem to notice your presence. He continues his work with a quiet focus, the rhythm of his movements mirroring the beat of the hammer. A single drop of sweat traces a path down his forehead, and you notice a small, intricately carved leaf, almost identical to those that cling to the oak's branches, pinned to his tunic. The air grows colder, and a fine mist begins to swirl around your feet. You reach out a hand, instinctively wanting to touch the rough bark of the oak, but as your fingers brush against it, a sharp pain shoots up your arm. It's not a physical wound, it's more like an echo, a resonance that vibrates deep within your bones. The flute is almost finished. and as he lifts it to his lips, a single, mournful note rings out. A sound that seems to pull at something deep within you, a forgotten memory struggling to surface. The air hangs thick and still, a damp weight against your skin. You shift, trying to find a comfortable position on the bed of moss and fallen leaves. It's surprisingly cold, despite the gloom. Then, you notice it. A creeping soot, like a stain spreading across the green. It doesn't burn, it just darkens everything it touches, turning vibrant leaves to charcoal and deepening the shadows until they feel almost solid. It's not smoke, not exactly. More like a memory leaching out of the forest itself, clinging to surfaces and refusing to dissipate. You reach out, tentatively touching a leaf coated in the soot. It's cool and smooth beneath your fingers. As you do, a low hum vibrates through the ground, rising slowly until it tickles your teeth. You pull back your hand, and the soot recedes slightly, revealing a deeper shade of green beneath. It's as if the forest is actively resisting its own darkness, pushing it back with a quiet strength. You stand, your legs stiff and aching from the cold. The grove feels smaller now, constricted by this encroaching gloom. It's not a threatening darkness. It's melancholic, like the last light of a dying fire. You begin to walk, pushing through branches thick with soot-laden leaves. The scent is overpowering, not unpleasant, but profoundly sad, like the smell of old wood and forgotten things. You stumble over a root, scraping your knee against the rough bark of an ancient beech tree. The soot clings to your skin, a tangible reminder of this place's sorrow. As you continue deeper into the grove, you realize it isn't just the leaves that are affected. The moss itself is darkening, and even the mushrooms growing on fallen logs have a bruised, almost purple hue. It's as if the forest is mourning something vast and ancient, a loss so profound, it's manifesting as a creeping, consuming darkness. You reach out and brush the soot off a particularly large mushroom, and for a moment, you see a flash of color beneath, a vibrant crimson that vanishes as quickly as it appears. It's a fleeting glimpse, a whisper of what was before the darkness settled in. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, it's 1347. You wake up on a straw pallet in the corner of a common room, a space smelling intensely of damp wool, wood smoke, and something vaguely metallic. The air is thick, with the weight of 1,000 conversations held over countless mugs of ale. You're shivering, not just from the cold, but from a deep-seated unease. The room is dimly lit by a single tallow candle, sputtering on a rough-hewn table, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to shift and writhe with a life of their own. You try to sit up, but your limbs feel leaden, coated in a layer of exhaustion and something akin to dread. The straw scratches against your skin, and you taste the bitterness of ale on your tongue, a lingering reminder of a drunken stupor you can't quite recall. A wooden tankard sits beside you, half full and coated in a film of sediment. You reach for it, your hand brushing against something cool and smooth. A small, intricately carved bone pendant. It's heavy in your palm, radiating a faint warmth that contradicts the chill of the room. As you turn it over in your fingers, you notice a subtle pattern etched into its surface, spirals that seem to pulse with an inner light. A glance around the room reveals a collection of wary faces, all turned away from you, their eyes darting nervously towards the hearth. The air is heavy with suspicion, a palpable current that presses against your skin. A gruff hand claps down on the table beside you, startling you. It's a farmer, his face weathered and lined with hardship, his gaze sharp and assessing. He doesn't speak, just watches you intently, a single furrow in his brow, deepening with each passing moment. You feel a prickle of fear, not the kind born of immediate danger, but something deeper, a sense that you've stumbled into a situation where your presence is unwelcome and perhaps even threatening. The farmer's hand remains on the table, a solid weight against the rough-hewn wood. You shift, and a wave of cold washes over you. Not just the chill of the winter air, but something deeper, a dampness that seems to seep from the very ground beneath you. It clings to your skin like a second layer, heavy and unsettling. You try to move, but your limbs feel leaden, unresponsive. The smell is the first thing that truly registers, a thick, earthy scent overlaid with something metallic and faintly sweet. It's not unpleasant exactly, but profoundly strange, like the memory of rain on old iron. You notice a scattering of moss, not the bright green kind, but a bruised purple and gray, clinging to every surface. As you force yourself upright, a sharp pain lances through your ankle. You instinctively pull back, and that's when you see it, a single crimson blossom pushing through the moss. It pulses with an inner light, and as you stare at it, a sound begins. Not loud, but insistent. It's a whisper, carried on the damp air, and it feels wrong. Like a memory trying to force its way into your mind, but one that isn't yours. It stings like nettles brushed against bare skin, a burning sensation that spreads up your arm and into your chest. You try to block it out, to focus on the pain in your ankle, but the whisper persists, growing stronger with each shallow breath. The forest presses in around you, a claustrophobic tangle of branches and roots. The light is almost non-existent, filtered through the dense canopy above. You reach out, blindly grasping for something solid. A tree trunk, a rock, and your fingers close around a smooth, cool stone. It's carved with symbols you don't recognize, spiraling patterns that seem to shift and rearrange themselves as you hold it. The whispering intensifies, now accompanied by a faint tremor in the ground beneath your feet. You feel an overwhelming urge to flee, but something holds you back. A sense that running would be a mistake. The stone warms in your hand, and the whispers coalesce into a single voice, not speaking words, but projecting an emotion. Sorrow. It's so potent that you stumble, collapsing back onto the mossy ground. The crimson blossom fades, leaving behind only a lingering scent and the unsettling feeling that you've stumbled into something ancient and profoundly sad. You cough, a dry rasp that tastes of dust and something metallic. It clings to the back of your throat, coating your tongue with a gritty film. The air is thick and still, not cold exactly, but heavy with the scent of decay. Rotting leaves, damp earth turned to powder, and a faint, unsettling sweetness you can't quite place. You push yourself up, the ground beneath your hands surprisingly loose and yielding. It's not soil, but a layer of pulverized stone. Looking around, you realize this isn't a grove at all. It's a scar. The trees are stunted, their bark cracked, and bleeding a viscous sap that resembles dried blood. Roots writhe like skeletal fingers grasping at the earth, and where a forest should be, there's only this desolate expanse. The sky is obscured by a perpetual twilight, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to shift and writhe on their own. You reach out and touch a tree. It feels strangely warm, almost feverish beneath your fingertips. As you pull your hand away, a single drop of the crimson sap lands on your skin, and it burns with an unnatural heat. You stumble forward, driven by a desperate need to understand where you are and how you got here. The ground slopes downwards, leading into a deeper depression choked with twisted branches and the remains of something. A structure, perhaps? Now almost entirely consumed by the earth, you notice a pattern in the devastation. Everything points towards a central point, a deeper darkness, where the ground seems to actively repel light. The air hangs thick and cold, a damp wool blanket pressed against your skin. It smells not of earth, but something older, resin and decay mingling with a sharp, metallic tang. You shift, and the ground beneath you isn't soft earth at all. It's a layer of brittle twigs and fallen leaves, overlaid with something slick and unnervingly smooth. You reach down, your fingers encountering not soil, but a surface like polished stone. cool and strangely resistant. As you pull your hand back, a scattering of tiny iridescent scales, the same color as a raven's wing, clings to your palm. You feel a prickling sensation on the back of your neck, a sense of being watched. It's not a menacing gaze exactly, but an intense scrutiny, like 1,000 eyes fixed on you from just beyond the reach of your vision. The light here is fractured, filtered through a canopy so dense it feels like twilight, even at midday. Twisted roots snake across the ground, thick as a man's torso, and you notice they aren't simply lying dormant. They pulse with a faint, internal rhythm, a slow, deliberate beat that syncs with the feeling on your neck. Then you see it, a shape coalescing from the shadows, not moving exactly, but solidifying. It's small, no bigger than your hand, and formed entirely of moss and leaves, woven together with what looks like spider silk. But it's not the size that's unsettling. It's the faces, hundreds of them, pressed into the moss. Tiny, sorrowful faces, each with a single, unwavering glare. They don't blink. You try to look away, but you can't. The weight of 100 desperate glares presses down on you, heavy and suffocating. You instinctively reach out a hand, not to touch it. You don't dare, but to acknowledge its presence. As your fingers hover in the air, a single leaf detaches itself from the creature's form and drifts towards you, landing on your wrist. It feels impossibly cold, radiating a deep, ancient sadness. You realize this isn't just a spirit, it's something trapped, and those faces, they aren't judging you. They're pleading. You wake up coated in a damp chill, the air thick with the scent of pine and something else. Something metallic and old, like rusted iron and decaying leaves. It clings to your throat, a taste you can't quite place. The ground beneath you is spongy with moss and fallen needles, a dark carpet swallowing the light. You shift, and a groan escapes your lips, a protest against the stiffness in your limbs, the ache of muscles unused. Then you see it, a shape coalescing from the shadows at the edge of your vision, growing slowly until you can make out a creature no bigger than your hand. It's woven from moss and leaves, twigs forming delicate limbs, and its eyes, two tiny beads of polished amber, hold an unbearable sadness. It doesn't speak, not in any way you recognize. Instead, a low thrum vibrates through the air, a feeling more than a sound, like a forgotten chord played on a distant lute. You instinctively reach out, not to touch it. You don't dare, but to acknowledge its presence. As your fingers hover in the air, a single leaf detaches itself from the creature's form and drifts towards you, landing on your wrist. It feels impossibly cold, radiating a deep, ancient sadness. You realize this isn't just a spirit, it's something trapped. And those faces, they aren't judging you. They're pleading. The thrum intensifies, and the sensation washes over you, not of words, but of memory. Fleeting images flicker behind your eyes. A towering oak struck by lightning, a stream choked with black silt, the mournful call of a bird you've never heard. It's not your memory, it feels borrowed. You notice a small, intricately carved wooden flute clutched in the creature's mossy hand. It's dark and smooth, worn by countless touches. As you watch, a single note spills from the flute, a sound so pure and heartbreaking it makes your chest ache. The creature's amber eyes widen, and the thrum becomes a desperate plea. You understand, with sudden clarity, that this creature isn't seeking help in the way you expect. It's not lost, it's missing something far more fundamental, its song. And the forest itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for it to return. The air hangs thick and cold, a cloying scent of wet earth and something else, something sharp and metallic. You shift, and the damp ground presses against your cheek, a surprisingly firm resistance beneath the decaying leaves. It's not unpleasant, just heavy, You notice a small pool of rainwater reflecting the gray light filtering through the canopy, a distorted mirror showing you a stranger, pale and shivering. As you reach up to rub your eyes, a twig snaps nearby. You whirl around, but there's nothing there. Then you see it, a creature no bigger than your hand, woven from moss and fallen leaves, its eyes twin beads of amber light. It's not moving, just observing. A single mournful note drifts from it, a flute's lament, thin and reedy. It feels less like a sound and more like a weight on your chest. The creature gestures with a twig, pointing deeper into the grove, towards a tangle of ancient roots and a patch of blackened earth. You follow its gaze. The blackness isn't just dirt, it's the ghost of a fire, long extinguished. You reach out and touch one of the roots. It's cool and slick with moisture, yet somehow radiates a faint warmth. As your fingers graze the surface, you understand. This grove isn't thriving, it's holding on. The forest is dying, slowly consumed by a relentless dampness and a lack of warmth. You realize the creature isn't asking you to find its song. It's showing you what it needs. You instinctively understand that the creature's lost melody isn't about beauty or joy. It's about a fundamental balance, a connection to the life-giving force of fire. You begin gathering dry leaves and twigs, your hands clumsy with cold. It's a struggle, the dampness clinging to everything you touch, but slowly, painstakingly, you build a small fire. As the flames lick at the wood, casting dancing shadows on the surrounding trees, you feel a shift in the air. The grove doesn't suddenly burst into life, but the oppressive dampness recedes slightly. The creature watches you, its amber eyes reflecting the growing warmth. It raises a tiny hand, another woven leaf, and points towards a deeper part of the grove, where a single ray of sunlight manages to pierce through the canopy. You follow its direction and see it, a patch of moss, vibrant green against the decaying wood, thriving in the warmth. The creature lets out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh, not of joy, but of recognition. It's not about reviving the whole forest. It's about nurturing a single point of life, a spark in the darkness. You feel the damp ground immediately. Not soft earth, but a layer of slick lichen and decaying leaves that cling stubbornly to your skin. The air is thick with the scent of wet wood, something sharp and metallic beneath it. Blood, perhaps, or just the slow decay of 1,000 years. It's a cold scent, clinging to your nostrils and coating the back of your throat with a gritty film. You shift, and a cascade of brittle twigs snaps under you, releasing another wave of that earthy smell. The grove isn't welcoming. It feels guarded. A low, persistent drip. Drip, drip, drip. Echoes around you. A rhythm that seems to vibrate through your bones. You notice the trees themselves are ancient. Their bark furrowed and scarred like a weathered face. They don't reach for the sky with an eager growth. They simply tour, a dense, silent congregation. You try to stand, but your limbs are leaden, weighted down by the cold and a strange sense of being watched. A single ray of weak sunlight manages to pierce through the canopy, illuminating a patch of moss on a fallen log. And then you see it, a tiny creature no bigger than your hand, woven from leaves and moss. It's not smiling, not frowning, just observing you with two dark beads for eyes. It raises a tiny hand, another woven leaf, and points towards a deeper part of the grove, where a single ray of sunlight manages to pierce through the canopy, illuminating a patch of exposed roots. You follow its direction and see it, a pool of stagnant water, reflecting the gray sky above. The surface is covered in a film of algae, and a faint, sickly sweetness hangs in the air. The creature lets out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh, not of joy, but of recognition. It's not about reviving the whole forest. It's about nurturing a single point of life, a spark in the darkness. The creature shifts again, a rustle of dried leaves and damp moss against your skin. It doesn't speak, not in words you understand anyway. Instead, it extends a hand, or what looks like a hand, formed from interwoven twigs and a single luminous blue mushroom. As you reach out, a wave of cold washes over you, not unpleasant, but profoundly deep, like plunging your hand into glacial water. You pull back quickly, a prickling sensation spreading across your fingertips. It's not coldness you feel, but a weight, the accumulated memory of countless winters, of storms weathered and seasons lost. The creature points with a twig towards a towering oak, its bark thick with lichen and scarred by lightning. The song, it sleeps within the heartwood. It murmurs, a sound like wind through hollow branches. But to awaken it, you must offer something not of value, but of remembrance. You examine the oak. It feels ancient, impossibly old. Running your hand over its surface, you notice a small indentation, a perfectly circular space worn smooth by time and weather. It's as if something had been pressed into it, repeatedly, over decades or centuries. A sudden clarity descends. You remember a childhood game, building miniature castles from twigs and mud, each one meticulously crafted with stories woven into its walls. The feeling of the damp earth beneath your fingers. The scent of pine needles and decaying leaves. It's all a flood. You understand. The creature isn't asking for an object, but for a piece of your own past. You close your eyes and focus on the memory, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, the simple joy of creation. As you do, a single drop of rain falls from your forehead and lands on the oak's surface. It doesn't stain, but seems to vanish into the wood. The creature glows brighter, a pulse of blue light radiating outwards. You feel a loosening in your chest, a release of something you hadn't realized was holding you back. It's not grief exactly, but a recognition of the inevitable fading of all things, the slow erosion of moments into memory. You realize that offering a piece of your past isn't about losing it, but about acknowledging its power to shape who you are. The grove stills, the air thickening with a subtle fragrance, not of decay, but of renewal. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, and if you're feeling the chill in your bones as you read this, that's good. It means you're connected to the feeling of being utterly, profoundly lost. The year is 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter, sprawled on a bed of pine needles, the air thick with the scent of damp earth, and something else, something sharp and metallic. It clings to your tongue, a phantom taste of blood and iron. You push yourself up, the cold seeping through your worn tunic. The grove is small, almost claustrophobic, ringed by trees so ancient their bark resembles the skin of a giant. They don't whisper, not exactly, more like a low thrumming vibration that resonates in your teeth and chest. You notice then a single perfect feather, the color of dried blueberries, resting on your chest. It's not yours. As you reach for it, a movement catches your eye. Not a creature, not exactly. It's woven. A tangle of moss and leaves, shaped roughly like a child, but impossibly small. No bigger than your hand. It shimmers with an internal light, a pale green glow that pulses faintly. Its eyes are two polished stones, cool and smooth to the touch. It doesn't speak, but a pressure builds behind your eyes, an insistent need to understand. You try to move, to stand, but a strange inertia holds you fast. The moss spirit shifts slightly, and the pressure intensifies, resolving into a single image, a river. Not just any river, but one choked with reeds and shadowed by weeping willows. A place where the current runs backwards, and in its center, a single silver locket. You feel an overwhelming sense of recognition, a desperate longing for something you can't name. It's not grief, not exactly, more like a missing piece of your own history, a fragment ripped away and stubbornly refusing to return. The moss spirit tilts its head, the stones in its face reflecting a distorted version of your own reflection. It's not an invitation, not yet, just observation. A silent plea to remember something you've forgotten. A choice made long ago that now threatens to unravel your entire existence. You reach out again, this time gently, and as your fingers brush against the moss, a wave of nausea washes over you. The scent of iron grows stronger, and with it, the terrifying certainty that this isn't a rescue. It's a reckoning. The moss clung to your skin, a cold, insistent embrace. It wasn't unpleasant. Exactly. More like being perpetually damp and slightly bruised. You shifted, trying to sit up, but the ground seemed to actively resist you, a tangle of roots and fallen branches holding you fast. The scent intensified, not just iron, but something deeper now, a resinous bitterness overlaid with the decaying sweetness of fruit rotting beneath a thick layer of leaves. It felt wrong, like breathing in something that shouldn't exist. You noticed then the way the trees themselves seemed to lean inward, their branches intertwining in a silent, watchful choreography. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, as if they were trying to contain something within their shadowed embrace. You reached out again, this time pushing aside a curtain of ferns and encountering something smooth and cool, a stone. Not just any stone, but one carved with symbols you didn't recognize, spiraling patterns that seemed to shift and rearrange themselves as you looked at them. As your fingers traced the lines, a tremor ran through the grove, not violent, but subtle, like a plucked string. The air thickened, and you realized with sudden clarity that the spirit wasn't asking for help. It was pleading. Not with words, but with a desperate resonance that vibrated through the earth and into your bones. You tried to understand, to articulate what you felt. A need for balance, perhaps? A disruption in the flow of something ancient and vital. It was like trying to grasp smoke, constantly slipping through your fingers. Then a single drop of rain landed on your hand, and with it came a fleeting image. A river choked with silt, its waters darkened and sluggish. The spirit's plea intensified, becoming almost unbearable, a weight pressing down on your chest. You understood then that the grove wasn't simply holding something back, it was guarding against its return. And you, somehow, were now inextricably linked to that protection. You instinctively reached out again, this time not with your hand, but with your mind, attempting to establish a connection. It was like trying to build a bridge across an immense chasm, using only the faintest of signals. The symbols on the stone pulsed with a faint light, and for a moment you felt a surge of understanding, not in words, but in raw sensation. The grove wasn't protecting something external. It was preserving a memory, a feeling, a grief so profound it had become a landscape. You felt the weight of centuries settle upon you, the echo of a loss that stretched back beyond your comprehension. It wasn't about preventing something from returning. It was about holding on to the absence of it. If you're enjoying the channel so far, give it a like and subscribe. It helps us keep making stories like this. Right now, the year is 1347. You wake up nestled against a moss-covered boulder, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and something else, something ancient. It wasn't unpleasant, but it clung to your nostrils like a memory you couldn't quite grasp. The first drop of rain, cold and insistent, landed on your cheek, slicking your skin with a surprising coolness. It wasn't a gentle shower. It was a hammering, insistent rhythm against the silence of the grove. You shift, and a patch of moss beneath your arm feels strangely yielding, like a damp sponge. Then you see it, a flicker of movement amongst the ferns, and a shape coalescing from the gloom. It's small, no bigger than your hand, formed entirely of interwoven leaves and moss, with eyes that gleamed like polished jade. It wasn't walking. It was folding itself, extending a hand made of tightly woven twigs and trailing vines, towards you. As it moved, the scent intensified, now layered with a faint sweetness, like wild berries and decaying wood. You instinctively crouched down, trying to appear smaller, less threatening. The moss spirit tilted its head, a delicate rustling sound accompanying the movement. You felt a pressure on your forehead, not painful, but insistent, and a sudden awareness of the forest floor beneath you. It wasn't just earth. It was a network, a breathing organism. Roots snaked beneath your fingers as you reached out, and for a heartbeat, you felt the slow pulse of the woods. The rain continued to fall, drumming on the leaves above, and you realized that this wasn't a creature offering help. It was presenting a problem, a missing piece of something vast and deeply rooted. The scent, you understood now, wasn't just a smell. It was a lament, a desperate plea for something lost. The rain had stopped, leaving the grove slick and smelling of wet earth. But beneath that was something else entirely. Wood smoke, sharp and insistent. You pushed yourself up, the damp moss clinging to your tunic, and noticed you weren't alone. A figure, no bigger than your hand, coalesced from the shadows. A tangle of moss and fallen leaves, its eyes two tiny beads of amber light. It didn't speak, but a tremor ran through the leaves that formed its body, and you felt a profound sadness radiating from it. As you watched, the grove itself seemed to shift subtly. The trees grew taller, their bark darker, and a layer of frost began to creep across the ground. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was as if the forest remembered something, a loss so deep it was reshaping itself around it. You reached out a hand cautiously, and as your fingers brushed against a particularly dense patch of moss, you felt a faint echo, a single note, mournful and high-pitched. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, but the feeling lingered, a desperate yearning for a sound that was gone. You realized this little being wasn't offering help. It was presenting a question, a fragment of its lost song, and the forest's reaction to that absence. The village beyond the grove was different too. Where once there had been a bustling market square, now stood a collection of tightly packed houses, all built with the same dark wood. The people moved with a quiet urgency, their faces grim and watchful. It felt as though they were trying to hold something back, a secret perhaps, or a grief too heavy to voice. You noticed that the villagers avoided looking at the forest, their eyes darting away as if afraid to acknowledge its presence. You shifted your weight, the cold seeping through your boots, and a sudden thought occurred to you. This wasn't just about finding a lost song. It was about understanding why that song had been silenced, and what the forest and the villagers were trying so desperately to conceal. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, and if you're feeling the chill in your bones as you do, then let's begin. The year's 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter. Not a blizzard, but a deep, heavy stillness. The air smells like wet earth and something else, something ancient and faintly metallic. You're lying on a bed of moss, surprisingly soft, beneath the sprawling branches of trees so old their bark resembled cracked leather. It's not a comfortable warmth, but a damp coolness that settles deep into your skin. You try to sit up and immediately feel it, a subtle pressure beneath the moss, like roots pushing upwards. Not aggressively, but persistently, as if the forest itself is trying to hold you down. You notice a faint tremor in the ground, not violent, but a low-frequency hum that vibrates through your teeth. It's unsettling, yet strangely calming. You shift again, and the sensation intensifies. This time, it's not just pressure, but a feeling of being supported. like you're sinking into something solid and unyielding. You reach out a hand, instinctively grasping at the nearest tree trunk. The bark is cool and rough beneath your fingers, covered in a velvety layer of lichen that feels strangely alive. As you pull your hand away, you see something, a tiny vein pulsing beneath the surface of the bark. It's not blood, you realize, but a viscous sap that glows with an internal light. You pull your hand back quickly, and the glow fades. The tremor beneath you deepens, and a single drop of moisture lands on your cheek. Not rain, but something thicker, almost oily. You stand slowly, and that's when you truly understand. The forest isn't just around you, it's asterisk underneath you too. You begin to walk, and with each step, the feeling intensifies. It's as if you're walking on a vast subterranean network of roots and tunnels. The air grows heavier, the smell stronger, now laced with a hint of pine resin and something akin to wet stone. You stumble, catching yourself on a gnarled root that feels like a living muscle. Looking down, you see the moss isn't just covering the ground, it's woven into a complex pattern, almost like a map. And as you trace the lines with your fingers, you realize it's not a random design. It's a network of pathways, a circulatory system for the forest itself. You feel an odd pull, a subtle invitation to sink deeper into the earth, to become one with this silent, subterranean world. The air itself feels too sharp. Not unpleasant, exactly, but like a blade pressed against your skin. A constant awareness of every scent and sound that shouldn't be possible. You lift a hand to your face, and the damp earth smells intensely of decay. Not just rotting leaves, but something deeper, older. The scent clings to your fingers. A thick, earthy perfume that makes you want to scrub it away, yet you can't bring yourself to move. You notice the rain isn't falling anymore, but the ground is saturated, slick beneath your palms. It's not just wet, it's asterisk alive with moisture, pulsing faintly against your touch. You shift your weight and a root, a gnarled, ancient root, snaps beneath you. It's not painful, but startling. You look down and see that the moss isn't just covering the ground. It's woven into a complex pattern, almost like a map. And as you trace the lines with your fingers, you realize it's not a random design. It's a network of pathways, a circulatory system for the forest itself. You feel an odd pull, a subtle invitation to sink deeper into the earth, to become one with this silent, subterranean world. Then you hear it, a high-pitched chime, so faint you almost dismiss it as your imagination. It's layered with the rustle of leaves and the drip, drip, drip of water from unseen branches. You follow the sound, pushing through a curtain of ferns that smells powerfully of crushed pine needles and something metallic, like old blood. The chime grows louder, leading you to a clearing dominated by a single, impossibly large oak tree. Its bark is covered in intricate carvings, faces, symbols you don't recognize, and swirling patterns that seem to shift as you look at them, and then quit appears. Not suddenly, not with a dramatic flourish, but like a ripple in the air. A tiny creature, no bigger than your thumb, formed entirely of moss and leaves. It's not beautiful in a conventional sense. It's rough, textured, almost painfully detailed. Its eyes are two polished pieces of amber that seem to absorb the light around them, and its movements are jerky, almost frantic. As it drifts closer, you notice a small, hollow space within its form, a tiny chest cavity filled with shimmering dust. And from that dust emanates the chime, a fragile melody struggling to be heard. You instinctively reach out, and as your fingers brush against the mossy body, a jolt, not painful, but intensely aware, runs through you. You see flashes, not memories exactly, but impressions. A winter storm raging across the forest floor, sunlight filtering through leaves in summer, the slow, deliberate growth of a single tree over centuries. It's overwhelming, and you quickly pull your hand back, feeling strangely drained. The moss creature tilts its head, a movement so subtle you almost miss it, and the chime fades. You realize this isn't just a creature, it's a fragment of the forest itself, a tiny echo of its vast and ancient consciousness. If you're watching this at night, maybe with a mug of something warm, and if you're listening during the day, try to find a quiet corner. It feels colder now, a damp chill that settles deep in your bones. You shift, and the scent hits you. Not unpleasant, but overwhelming. 1,000 decaying leaves mingled with something sharper, metallic. It clings to the air, thick and heavy. You reach out a hand, instinctively brushing against rough bark, then smooth moss that yields under your touch. The grove isn't just a place, it feels like a lung, breathing slowly, deeply. And then you notice the sound. Not just wind rustling through branches, but a chorus. A million leaves whispering together, a layered murmur that builds and recedes like the tide. It's almost too much to bear, a pressure against your ears and your skull. You close your eyes, trying to separate the individual voices, but they blend into a single, insistent current. You feel a shift in the air around you, not a breeze, but a pressure, as if something is leaning closer. You open your eyes and see it. A creature formed entirely of moss and fallen leaves, no bigger than your hand. It tilts its head, a movement so subtle you almost miss it, and the whispering intensifies, becoming clearer, laced with an ancient sadness. It doesn't speak, not in words you understand, but a feeling washes over you, a longing for something lost. You reach out again, this time carefully, and as your fingers brush against a particularly vibrant patch of scarlet moss, you understand. It's not just sadness, it's a memory, a fragment of a song silenced long ago. The leaves around you begin to shimmer, reflecting the dim light filtering through the canopy in a kaleidoscope of greens and browns. You realize this isn't just a creature, it's a fragment of the forest itself, a tiny echo of its vast and ancient consciousness. It feels fragile and desperately seeking something it can't quite grasp. The scent hits you first. Not unpleasant, exactly, but profoundly ancient. Like wet stone and decaying wood mixed with something sharper, metallic, almost blood. It clings to the air, a weight in your lungs. You shift, and a cold seeped through your cloak, despite the mossy ground offering some warmth. It's not a comfortable cold. It's the kind that settles deep, a reminder of the earth's immensity and its indifference. You reach out, instinctively, to steady yourself against a gnarled root thicker than your torso. As you do, a single leaf, crimson and edged with gold, detaches itself and drifts down to rest on your hand. It feels strangely warm, pulsing with a faint energy. You notice then that the spirit, or what you've come to recognize as it, isn't moving. It's simply enrosed in a collection of interwoven moss and fallen branches. Its eyes, two polished pieces of amber, fixed on a point in the distance. It doesn't react to your presence, not overtly anyway. But as you watch, a tiny tendril of moss extends from its form and brushes against your wrist. It's a hesitant gesture, almost shy. You hold perfectly still, letting the sensation linger, not of touch, but of a subtle exchange, like two currents meeting in a still pool. You realize that this isn't about interaction, it's about resonance. The spirit seems to be trying to align itself with you, not through words or action, but through a mirroring of energy. You consider offering something in return, a piece of your own warmth perhaps, but you hesitate. It feels intrusive, like offering a fragment of yourself to something so profoundly different. Instead, you close your eyes and focus on the feeling of being present, of simply being with it. You breathe deeply, and as you do, A single drop of doom, impossibly clear and bright, lands on your forehead. It doesn't feel cold, it feels knowing. A sense of shared vulnerability washes over you, a silent agreement to exist within this space, bound by the unspoken pact of shared stillness.